Good day, everyone. Today, I will be discussing to you the three articles. The first article was the performance-based assessment in selected higher education institutions in Cebu City, Philippines. This study described how the performance-based assessment was used in selected higher education classrooms in Cebu City, Philippines. First was, what is assessment? Assessment is a part and parcel of any instructional process, meaning whatever the teacher plans and delivers, assessment of the students' outcomes will follow. This graphical function of instruction are very much interrelated and evident in the learning workplace, which can be observed either in a local or a foreign classrooms. In today's educational system relies heavily on assessment. Assessment is used as a system for evaluating individual performance as well as comparing performance across a range and among population. However, with so many various types of assessment available, for so many different companies these days, it can be difficult to keep the primary objective of assessing in mind. So, what's the center of all these evaluations? Assessment is used to obtain important information about a student's performance or development, as well as to establish a student's interest in order to make decisions about their learning process. Teachers can use this information to adapt their teaching approaches by reflecting on each student's level of success as well as the group's individual tendencies. Continuous assessments gives feedback on the learning and teaching process on a daily basis. The effectiveness of teaching and learning can be reinforced through the assessment. According to layman's term, assessment is the collection of information about the student's learning, the gathering of evidence of what students know and what they can do. Further, Popham defined assessment as a process of determining students' performance to test whether the learning has taken place in the setting classroom. It also involves a broader scope and a limited label for the measurement techniques a classroom teacher utilizes. Moreover, Aeration and Russell affirm that such label helps teachers to be informed and made aware of that assessment of student learning is not confined to paper and pencil tests alone. Teachers view assessment as a comparison of a student's performance from a given criteria. Students, on the other hand, perceive assessment as a room for improvement and an avenue for further learning. Once assessment is done, feedback and performance should be provided to identify strengths and weaknesses, thus monitoring students' learning. According to Macmillan, on the other hand, stress that alternative assessment is based on the different philosophy and goals to provide a stronger link between instruction and assessment, making learning more significant. The introduction of these two types of assessment in the academy, educators and other advocates of learning have been clamoring on what type of assessment is effective to use in the classroom. From the local perspective, the use of both types of assessment remains a controversial issue in any academic discussion and debate. Most Filipino classrooms prefer to use both since one cannot be separated from the other for reason that students need to take college admission tests as well as licensure examination in various fields of disciplines after their graduation. Now, let's proceed to the objectives of this study. This study described the selected higher education students' engagement on performance-based activities. The factors contributing to the students' academic engagement of performance-based tasks were also identified in the study. Next is the materials and methods. This study is utilized a qualitative content analysis where an interpretation of the context of the text data was used. According to Python, qualitative context analysis involves data reduction and sense making for the identification of merging meaning and the pattern. Purpose sampling was used for 6 students from 2 selected sectarian and non-sectarian higher education institutions in Cebu City were identified. A researcher-made interview guide was used as basis in the conduct of interviews from the identified key informants. Observations were conducted by the faculty researchers during performance-based activities engagements in class. Aside from observations, focus groups discussion were also facilitated to gather in-depth analysis of the collected data. Triangulation was used where the 3 methods of the data collection validated the selected key informants: utterances, the gestures, the body movements, and the others. Let's proceed to the results of the discussion. The response utilized by the selected key informants on the use of performance-based assessment in the classroom were clustered into 3 categories, namely the motivation to learn, self-regulation, the motivation to learn, the self-regulation, and willingness to work in a group. I will be discussing to you the 3 factors. The first one is to the motivation to learn. It motivation as presented by the shrunk penetrates and means, involves goal attainment. It is the teacher's ultimate goal to understand how these processes are applied in the classroom. Next is the self-regulation. Self-regulation is the ability to keep oneself in a proper composure despite the presence of distracting behaviors or impulses. And the last one is the willingness to work in a group. Meaning, as observed, the student key informant's motivation to work in a group was evident. Although the atmosphere is informal, they still continue to work and engage in a performance-based activities in groups. The key informants work for one goal to produce a performance output designed to meet the agreed rubric. The teacher expectations are also considered to avoid ambiguity of the output. Further, the key informants are able to keep going when problems arise. As self-regulated students, they remain calm when problems arise and cheer up again when they are in trouble. Let's now proceed to the last discussion, the conclusion and recommendation. The use of performance-based assessment in selected Philippine classroom brought significant effects in assessing in the students' learning.